the front door open. The familiar sound of her daughter's laughter drifted in, lighter than air, bright with the kind of joy only newlyweds carried. Sylvia turned, drying her hands on a towel, just in time to see Anna step into the room. She was still glowing in her cream-colored wedding dress, though 3 days had already passed since the ceremony. Behind her came Ryan Parker, her new husband, tall and polished, carrying himself with the easy charm of a man who knew exactly how to win people over. They sat down at the small wooden table where Anna had once done her school assignments. Ryan placed a thick envelope on the surface, his smile never faltering. "This will help us all work together better," he said, his voice smooth and confident. "Just some planning for the future, money matters, nothing complicated." Anna nodded eagerly, her eyes shining as if she already believed every word. Sylvia didn't reach for the envelope. She simply stared at it, her chest tightening. Ryan leaned back, still smiling. "You understand, right?" he added. "We want to set up something special for when the babies come." Sylvia's silence filled the kitchen like a heavy fog. She gave no answer, only the faintest curve of her lips that hid the unease building in her stomach. In that moment, she knew something dangerous had just been placed on her table. Ryan's voice carried a false warmth that Sylvia could almost taste, like honey masking something bitter underneath. He tapped the envelope with his fingers, his nails clicking softly against the paper as if urging her to open it. Anna leaned closer, her eyes hopeful, her whole face lit with trust. "Mom, it's just some paperwork," she said gently. "Ryan's been amazing with numbers. You know how careful he is about saving. This is just for us to start building a future." Sylvia folded her arms across her chest, leaning against the counter instead of sitting down. She remembered this same table when Anna was a little girl, bent over her school books, her hair tied up in messy braids while Sylvia corrected spelling words. The memory clashed painfully with the sight of Ryan's folder sitting on the wood. That table had always been about learning and growing. Now it was about contracts and control. Ryan cleared his throat. "Look, I know money can be complicated, but families who plan ahead thrive together. We want to create a family account, something secure for everyone. Babies, homes, vacations. It makes sense, doesn't it?" He spoke smoothly, as though every word had been rehearsed in front of a mirror. Anna nodded again, eager to prove she was on his side. "It's just a smart step, Mom. Don't you think?" Sylvia forced a thin smile, though her stomach was knotted tight. She did not want to argue in front of Anna. She had already learned from life that silence could be more powerful than any outburst. So she stayed quiet, studying Ryan's every move, noticing the way his eyes flicked to the envelope as though it held his future. He wanted her to touch it, to claim it as her own responsibility. But Sylvia knew better. The thick paper was not an invitation, it was a trap. Ryan stood and carried his plate to the sink, acting casual, as if they were talking about weekend plans instead of finances. "We're leaving for our honeymoon tomorrow," he added lightly. "Just take a look while we're gone. It'll save time later." His confidence filled the room like a performance he had done 100 times. He kissed Anna on the cheek, gave Sylvia a polite nod, and left the envelope on the table as though it already belonged to her. Anna looked back at her mother, her smile soft and trusting. "He just wants us to be ready, Mom. You understand, right?" Sylvia reached out, touching her daughter's hand briefly, squeezing it once before letting go. She didn't answer. Not yet. The door closed behind them, leaving the house quiet again. Only then did Sylvia pick up the envelope, feeling its weight, heavy, deliberate, dangerous. She placed it back down without opening it, her hands trembling. She knew Ryan was clever, maybe too clever. And in that silence, one truth rang clear: he was already reaching for money that wasn't his. Sylvia sat alone at the table long after Anna and Ryan had gone. The envelope remained in front of her, its edges sharp against the wood, as if daring her to break the seal. She didn't need to. Deep down, she already knew what it contained. Promises of shared futures, carefully disguised legal traps, ways to reach into her life without asking. She pressed her palms flat against the table, steadying her breath. This was not the first time someone had tried to take what wasn't theirs. When her husband passed away nearly a decade earlier, Sylvia had inherited $7 million. It was more money than she had ever dreamed of, a fortune built through years of hard work and quiet investments. But she never told anyone. Not Anna, not the neighbors, not even her closest friends. The number sat quietly in an account hidden under a different name, as if it belonged to a stranger. She had learned the hard way that silence was protection. After the funeral, her brother-in-law had cornered her in the driveway, insisting that half of everything belonged to him. He spoke with arrogance, waving legal documents she hadn't even seen before. It took months of lawyers and sleepless nights to prove him wrong, to keep what her husband had left behind for her and Anna. Since then, Sylvia trusted no one with the truth, not even her daughter. Especially not now. She stood, slid the envelope into a drawer, and closed it firmly. The house was quiet again, sunlight streaming across the kitchen floor. Sylvia touched her wedding ring, still resting on her finger, a habit she had never given up. Her husband's voice seemed to echo in her memory, always be cautious, always protect what's yours. She whispered into the empty room, I won't let him take it, and for the first time in years, her hands stopped trembling. 2 mornings later, Sylvia was wiping down her kitchen counter when the doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone. Through the glass, she saw a young man in a tailored suit, polished shoes, and carrying a sleek black briefcase. He couldn't have been older than 25. His hair was combed with precision, his smile already fixed as though he practiced it in the mirror. Good morning, ma'am, he said politely when she opened the door. Are you Mrs. Warren? Sylvia narrowed her eyes but nodded. The young man extended his hand confidently. David Miller, attorney. I represent Ryan Parker and Anna Evans. I'd like to discuss some important documents with you. May I come in? Her grip tightened on the doorknob. For a moment she thought about shutting the door, but curiosity urged her to let him inside. She stepped aside silently. David entered as if the house already belonged to him, placing his briefcase on the same wooden table Ryan had used days before. This, he began, sliding out glossy papers, is a safety measure. Ryan and Anna have decided to join their finances, a wise step for a new couple. Naturally, this includes family support that could strengthen the account. He spoke smoothly, his words rehearsed, his tone confident. Sylvia didn't sit. She stood with her arms folded, her eyes never leaving the pages. David tapped a section with his pen. Here, section 7.2, Parent Financial Disclosure and Pre-Inheritance Trust. It simply ensures that any assets you may hold are declared properly. Anna signed yesterday before they left for their honeymoon. We'd like your signature before the weekend. Sylvia leaned closer. The signature on the page was unmistakably Anna's, but rushed, careless, as though she hadn't even read the words. Sylvia looked back at David. Did my daughter even read this? She asked flatly. He hesitated for just a second before smiling again. They're young. They trust each other. Wrong answer, Sylvia thought. She pressed her hands against the table, her voice calm but firm. Tell Ryan he will have to wait. I don't sign anything without my own lawyer reviewing it first. David blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. He gathered his papers carefully, masking his frustration with another polite smile. Of course, we'll await your response. When the door shut behind him, Sylvia released a long breath. The war had begun. Sylvia wasted no time. That same afternoon, she called the one person she trusted most with matters like this, Michael Reed. Michael had been her attorney for nearly 20 years. He was older now, with thinning gray hair and a voice that carried calm authority. When he picked up the phone, Sylvia didn't bother with small talk. Something's wrong, she said firmly. They're pushing papers too fast. Anna just got married and already they're circling me like vultures. Michael listened quietly, the sound of his pen scratching notes in the background. Do you want me to review the documents? He asked. Sylvia hesitated, then shook her head even though he couldn't see her. No, I want you to create something, a decoy. A decoy? Michael repeated, surprised. I need a paper trail that looks real but shows I only received $240,000 when my husband died. A modest inheritance. Nothing more. Put it in an account that looks legitimate but not impressive enough to chase. If Ryan is the man I think he is, he'll dig. And when he digs, I want him to find crumbs, not the feast. There was a long pause on the line before Michael finally spoke. You always did think 3 steps ahead, Sylvia. I'll draft the documents and set up the account. It will hold water under casual scrutiny, but if he pushes too hard, he'll expose himself. Exactly, she replied. I don't want to just say no. I want proof of what he'll do when he thinks no one is watching. By the end of the week, Michael delivered everything. Forged but convincing probate papers, a mock account balance, even a subtle digital trail pointing to the funds. Sylvia placed the folder on her desk, leaving it half open, as though she had carelessly forgotten to put it away. She wanted it to be easy enough for curious eyes to stumble across. That night she sat in her study, the glow of the desk lamp casting shadows across the room. She thought of Anna's trusting face, the way her daughter's eyes softened whenever Ryan spoke. Sylvia's chest tightened. Anna was in love, blind to the dangers she could not see. Sylvia whispered into the empty room, "If he takes the bait, we'll know who he really is." Then she closed the folder and waited for the trap to spring. 3 days later, Sylvia got the first sign that her trap was working. A call came from her bank early in the morning. "Mrs. Warren," the representative said carefully, "we detected an unusual attempt to access one of your older accounts. The request came through a tablet registered under the name Anna Evans. For security, we froze the activity." Sylvia closed her eyes. It wasn't Anna who tried. It was Ryan. He had found the decoy papers and decided to test his luck. He had gone digging exactly as she predicted. Relief and dread mingled inside her. Proof was in her hands, but the cost was her daughter's trust. That evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Anna. "Mom, we need to talk first." "Please don't be mad. Jake said you were mean to him." Sylvia stared at the glowing screen, her throat tightening. Ryan was already moving faster than she expected, turning Anna against her. By the time Sylvia's plan unfolded, she would no longer look like the cautious mother protecting her family. She would look like the controlling widow meddling in her daughter's marriage. She didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, she called Michael. He tried to access the account, she said without greeting. From Anna's tablet, Michael's voice was calm, steady. "That's bold. Or careless. Maybe both. I'll pull the device logs, confirm everything. But Sylvia, be careful. He'll paint you as the villain." "I know," she whispered. Later that night, Sylvia sat alone in her living room, the house too quiet, her hands folded in her lap. She remembered Anna as a child, running barefoot through the backyard, laughing, free. That memory clashed painfully with the reality that her daughter now lived beside a man who saw her as a key, not a partner. Sylvia looked toward the darkened window, her reflection staring back at her. She knew she couldn't lash out. Not yet. Every step forward had to be calm, measured, patient. She whispered to herself, "This isn't just about money anymore. It's about saving Anna before she loses everything." Sylvia chose the setting carefully. Not a noisy diner, not a crowded cafe, but a quiet garden restaurant tucked behind brick walls where rose bushes framed every table. It was the kind of place Anna had loved as a girl, feeding fish in the pond after Sunday brunch. Sylvia booked a private corner, where the air smelled faintly of lavender and the waiters knew how to leave guests alone. She also invited Michael, but introduced him only as a friend from the insurance business. Today his job was to observe and record, nothing more. Ryan and Anna arrived right on time. He wore a pale blue suit, the kind men on television wore to close million-dollar deals. Anna clung to his arm, her cream blouse simple but elegant. Sylvia stood to greet them, kissing her daughter on the cheek and shaking Ryan's hand with the kind of polite smile she had perfected over years of charity luncheons. The first minutes were pleasant, almost deceptively so. They ordered salad for Anna, steak for Ryan, soup for Ryan. Conversation floated around safe topics: the honeymoon trip, lost luggage, a hotel worker lending them his boat. Sylvia listened with practiced interest, her eyes calm, her posture steady. She was waiting. Finally, Ryan leaned forward, folding his hands like a negotiator. "Sylvia," he said warmly, "I want to clear the air. I never meant to pressure you. I just thought we could build something smart together, as a family." He glanced at Anna, who nodded quickly, eager for peace. Sylvia tilted her head. "That's kind of you, Ryan." His smile deepened as he reached into his jacket and pulled out the same folder she had seen before. He placed it gently on the table. "I brought the paperwork again, just in case you had time to reconsider." Sylvia lifted the folder, flipping through a few pages as if skimming, then set it aside. Calmly she reached into her purse and pulled out a single document of her own. She laid it flat across the table, neat and deliberate. "This," she said evenly, "is my disclosure. $240,000 left, after debts and legal fees. That's all there is." Ryan's eyes scanned the figure, but his smile faltered. For a fraction of a second, anger flashed across his face before the mask returned. Anna leaned forward in shock. "That's all," she whispered. Sylvia met her daughter's eyes. "Your father left debts I never told you about. I managed, I sold the lake cabin. I kept life simple. I just didn't want you to worry." Ryan lifted his glass, forcing a smile that no longer reached his eyes. "I see," he said quietly. The rest of lunch passed with forced pleasantries. They hugged goodbye at the door, but Sylvia watched him carefully. She knew this wasn't the end. Ryan Parker was not a man who walked away empty-handed. That evening, Sylvia sat in her study with the lamp casting a pool of light over the desk. The folder from lunch still lay untouched beside her. She reached instead for her laptop and a stack of USB drives. Anna had sent her dozens of clips from the wedding, some professional, some shaky recordings from guests' phones. Sylvia replayed them one by one, searching for something she could use. Hours passed before she found it. The camera was far across the reception hall, focused mostly on the dance floor. But in the background, Ryan stood among his friends, a drink in his hand. The sound wasn't perfect, yet his voice carried clearly enough. One of his friends asked, half joking, "Did you marry rich?" Ryan laughed, bold and confident, lifting his glass high. "Not yet, but give me a month, you'll see." His friends roared with laughter. Ryan grinned, proud, as though he had already struck gold. Sylvia froze the video, her pulse quickening. There it was, the truth spilling out, not in contracts or accounts, but in his own words. She transferred the clip onto a USB drive and called Michael. "I've got something," she said firmly. Within minutes she sent it to him. His reply came back almost instantly. "This is gold. Combined with the bank logs, it's more than enough." Sylvia leaned back in her chair, exhaling slowly. She finally had what she needed, undeniable proof of Ryan's intentions. But she knew evidence alone wouldn't save Anna. Her daughter's heart was tangled in love, loyalty, and denial. This would take more than paperwork, it would take confrontation, and Sylvia was ready for it. The meeting took place the next afternoon in a glass-walled law office downtown. The building itself radiated order and authority, a place where lies were difficult to maintain. Sylvia arrived early with Michael, carrying only her purse and a calm determination. She had dressed carefully, dark blazer, pearl earrings, no nonsense. Today was not about appearances. It was about truth. Anna insisted on coming too. She walked in beside Sylvia, her shoulders tight, her eyes restless. Sylvia could feel her daughter's inner conflict, torn between loyalty to her husband and the creeping suspicion that her mother might be right. Sylvia squeezed her hand once before they entered the conference room. Ryan arrived 10 minutes late, sunglasses perched on his head, his black sweater making him look more like a celebrity than a responsible husband. He smiled broadly when he walked in, as though this were just another social visit. But the smile wavered when Michael slid a folder across the table. "Courtesy copy," he said simply. Ryan opened it, flipping through the pages. Inside were screenshots of the attempted bank login traced back to Anna's tablet, timestamps matching the exact night he had tried to access the decoy account. Then came the video still of him at the wedding, glass raised, captioned with his own words, "Not yet, but give me a month." His jaw tightened, his lips pressed thin. "There's no crime here," he said quickly. "You can't prove anything." Michael's voice was calm. "You're correct. Not yet, but what we have is enough to start multiple investigations: identity misuse, financial coercion, fraudulent intent. It could get very public, very fast." Sylvia leaned forward, her eyes fixed on him. "You wanted my money, Ryan. You tried to take it. And you lied to my daughter." She paused, letting the silence weigh heavy. "Here's how this ends. You sign papers ending this marriage. You release Anna from every joint account, every property, every contract. You disappear. No court, no scandal." Ryan laughed bitterly, though the sound cracked. Michael pulled out another folder, thinner but stamped with the law firm's letterhead. "Or this goes to the press. Reporters already know a man boasted about marrying for money. Imagine tomorrow's headline." Ryan's eyes darted to Anna. She didn't flinch. "No," she said firmly, "you did this." The room fell silent. Ryan's bravado crumbled. At last he reached for the pen Sylvia had placed on the table. He signed each page, one by one, his hand shaking. When it was finished, he shoved the papers away, stood and adjusted his sunglasses. Without another word he walked out of the room. The door clicked shut behind him. Anna collapsed into tears. Sylvia pulled her close, rocking her gently as she had when Anna was a child. "It's over," Sylvia whispered. "You're safe now." The moment Ryan left, Anna clung to her mother, her tears soaking Sylvia's shoulder. For several minutes neither spoke. The tension that had built over weeks seemed to pour out all at once. Finally Anna pulled back, wiping her eyes with trembling hands. "Mom, I am so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't listen. I doubted you. I let him twist everything." Sylvia cupped her daughter's face gently, her voice soft but steady. "You believed in love. That's not a crime. That's being human." They left the law office together, stepping out into the fading light of the evening. The city buzzed around them, but Sylvia felt a quiet peace for the first time in weeks. Anna walked beside her, no longer holding on to Ryan's shadow, but leaning into the steady presence of her mother. That night they made a simple dinner at home, spaghetti and garlic bread, the kind Anna had always loved growing up. They ate slowly, talking little, letting the comfort of the meal do the healing. Afterward, Anna looked across the table, her eyes still red but filled with resolve. "Is it true, Mom?" she asked quietly. "About the money?" Sylvia paused, then nodded. "Yes, when your father passed, I inherited 7 million. Anna gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth. Sylvia continued, "I never told you because I wanted to protect you. Money changes people, and I didn't want it to change how you lived your life. Especially not with someone like Ryan nearby." Anna reached across the table and squeezed her mother's hand. "From now on," she said firmly, "no more secrets." Sylvia smiled, tears glistening in her own eyes. No more secrets. The days that followed were not easy. Anna filed the final paperwork, changed passwords, and cut ties with Ryan completely. It took courage, and there were moments of doubt, but she was no longer alone. Sylvia stood beside her, guiding her step by step. Through it all, Sylvia reflected on what had nearly been lost. Not the money. She could have walked away from every dollar if it meant keeping Anna safe. What mattered was trust, the bond between mother and daughter. That bond had been tested, strained nearly to breaking, but it endured. As Sylvia sat on her porch one evening, watching the sun dip below the trees, she thought about the lesson life had pressed upon her. Sometimes the best way to protect those you love is through silence and patience. Sometimes it takes careful planning to reveal the truth, and sometimes the greatest act of love is simply refusing to let someone you care about be destroyed. She smiled, whispering into the twilight, "We made it through," and in her heart, she